Let's talk about what is happening right now, because this is not normal, it is not acceptable, and it is absolutely not what the American people were promised. Donald Trump is having a disastrous morning, and frankly, the country is paying the price for it. Because today, the Trump regime openly admitted something that should shock everyone watching this. They are violating the law. Not bending it, not interpreting it differently, violating it, out in the open. The Epstein Files Transparency Act is very clear. It requires that all unclassified Epstein-related files be released within 30 days. Not some of them, not a preview, not "we'll get to the rest later," all of them. And yet, what did the Trump administration announce? They said they'll release a few 100,000 documents today, and then, maybe, weeks or months from now, they'll release more. That is not compliance. That is a cover-up. Let's stop pretending otherwise. This is a direct violation of the law, and everyone knows it. The only reason you delay releasing documents that are legally required to be released in full is because you are hiding something. Period. And it pains me to say that, but nobody should be surprised. Donald Trump didn't wake up today planning transparency. He woke up planning damage control. Now let's talk about who delivered this message to the public, because that part matters too. Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former personal criminal defense lawyer. The same Todd Blanche who defended Trump in the criminal case where Trump was convicted on more than 30 felony counts. The same Todd Blanche who was later rewarded with one of the highest-ranking positions in the Department of Justice. That alone should set off alarm bells. And this is also the same official who personally interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell while she was incarcerated in a maximum security facility before she was quietly transferred to a minimum security camp. You're supposed to believe this is all standard procedure. You're supposed to believe this is all above board. But then, Todd Blanche goes on television and says with a straight face that the administration is releasing only a portion of the Epstein files today, and claims this somehow represents full transparency. No, it doesn't. Transparency delayed is transparency denied. The law does not say release what's convenient. It does not say release what's politically safe. It says release all unclassified records today. And instead of doing that, the Trump regime is buying time. Time to redact, time to scrub names, time to protect powerful people. And let's be honest about who those people are. Donald Trump, Trump's associates, Trump's billionaire friends, Trump's political allies. This isn't speculation. This is supported by reporting. We already know that at least 1,000 FBI and DOJ personnel, many from national security divisions, were assigned to work on Epstein-related redactions. 1,000. That's not a routine document review. That's an operation. And we know this didn't just start recently. Reporting showed that back in March alone, nearly $1 million was spent on overtime related to reviewing these files. Thousands upon thousands of overtime hours logged. Think about that. If thousands of hours were logged just in overtime, how many total hours were spent reviewing and modifying these documents? Tens of thousands. And now, after all that time, after all that manpower, after all that effort, they're telling us they still can't release everything? That should tell you everything you need to know. This is not about protecting victims. This is not about privacy. This is about protecting power. And while all of this is happening, while the administration is actively covering up a child sex trafficking investigation, they are simultaneously gaslighting the American public about literally everything else. They're telling you the economy is great. They're telling you inflation is cooling. They're telling you unemployment numbers are strong. Meanwhile, real people are barely hanging on. People can't afford groceries. They can't afford rent.
They can't afford homes. They're living paycheck to paycheck, if they're lucky enough to have a paycheck. That's not prosperity. That's survival. And the data backs this up. Consumer sentiment has collapsed to levels not seen since the 1970s. Let that sink in. Decades of economic history, and this moment ranks among the worst in terms of how Americans feel about their financial future. But when those numbers come out, what do corporate media and political elites say? Bad news is good news for the markets. As long as Wall Street is fine, as long as billionaires see green arrows, the suffering of ordinary Americans is treated like background noise. That's the system Donald Trump represents. A system where the pain of millions is brushed aside, while corruption at the top is protected at all costs. And speaking of corruption, let's talk about what Trump himself is doing right now. While claiming to lead the country through economic hardship, Trump just oversaw a merger between his failing social media company and a fusion energy company, a $6 billion deal. A social media company that loses tens of millions every quarter, suddenly merging with a fusion tech firm, and the stock surges. Does that make sense to you? Of course it doesn't. It makes sense only if you understand that this regime is a cauldron of self-dealing and corruption. Public office used for private enrichment, plain and simple. And while all of that is happening, while files are being hidden and money is being made, the administration is also floating extreme authoritarian ideas, like seizing land from states and transferring it to military control. Yes, really. Federal officials are openly discussing taking land in California and designating it as a military installation to expand detention authority. States' rights, apparently, only apply when convenient. So let's put it all together. A government that refuses to release legally required files tied to a child sex trafficking ring, an administration staffed by loyalists and personal lawyers, a media ecosystem that downplays economic suffering, an economy where people are drowning while billionaires float, and a president who claims he's achieved an economic miracle while reality collapses around him. That's not leadership. That's deception. And the reason this matters, why it really matters, is because transparency is the foundation of democracy. When leaders decide they can ignore the law without consequence, when they decide the public doesn't deserve the truth, the system breaks. We don't get to pick and choose which laws apply. We don't get to delay justice because it's inconvenient, and we don't get to cover up crimes to protect powerful people. The Epstein files must be released in full, not later, not eventually, now. Anything less is a confession. And the American people see it. They're not stupid, they're not fooled by spin, and they're not buying the lies anymore. This cover-up is happening in real time, and history will remember who stood for transparency and who worked overtime to bury the truth.